In January 1942, just a few weeks after the Japanese attacks at Pearl Harbor, US War Department Office of the Chief of the Infantry issued an urgent letter with call for immediate action to the Infantry Board at the Fort Benning, Georgia. This letter was responsible for the birth of the modern sniper section as we know it today at the US Army. In this video we will discuss which rifles were recommended for conversion to the sniper rifles at the beginning of the World War II, which scopes went through the testing, why Winchester M70 didn't make the cut, and why silencers were dropped from the sniper program as well. Ordnance Department ship out following rifles for testing and evaluation: M1903A1 with the Unertl scope, M1 Garand, then M1903 with the Weaver scope, and the Winchester M70 also with the Weaver scope. These rifles were put through the series of tests and evaluation procedures to find out if they are fit for the sniper duty. Optics at the same time were evaluated based on the reticles, how rigid and waterproof they are, how much light they can gather, and if they are fit for the duty. The same happened to the Maxim-like suppressors, which the Infantry Board was tasked with evaluation as well and seeing if they could be used effectively in combat. So why the Winchester M70 got rejected from the program? After all, it was already on the books with the Ordnance Department, and the rifle was very successfully used by the numerous military shooting teams in the competitions. So one would think that this is a perfect candidate for the sniper rifle. Unfortunately, the M70 was not the standard issue rifle, and this argument alone was enough for the Infantry Board to reject it. Just a side note, for the testing, the M70 show up with this Weaver scope and not the Unertl scope. The form you're seeing, the form which that rifle is here in my hands, this is the Vietnam War era form. And interestingly enough, during the Vietnam War, when the Marine Corps was looking for their sniper rifle and the M40 program was beginning, the Winchester got snapped second time and they rejected the Winchester at that time as well. So not very lucky rifle for the sniper programs, but as I said, the Winchester M70 was used during the shooting competitions and the people really like that rifle. It's just not meant to be an official sniper rifle. So let's talk about the scopes. The Infantry Board tested two types of the scopes: Unertl, so-called target scopes, and the Weaver, so-called hunting scopes. And in their report, the board specifically said that they do recognize that there is more targets and hunting scopes, but they are all very similar to each other. So this is a good representation of one may expect from their performance. Now, board issued very critical notes about the Unertl target scopes, and let me quote: "Study found out that the length of the telescope is too excessive. Weight of the telescope again is too excessive. Telescope position is too high over the rifle stock. Telescope is not rigidly mounted, but it is free to move." And as we know what's happening with the Unertl scope, that scope travels in the rings from the recoil. And the positive note was that the telescope can be fairly quickly taken and dismounted from the rifle by unscrewing these two screws. Another critical factor against the Unertl scope was Board concluded that the eye relief for the scope is really not comfortable for the shooter. Interestingly enough, Board also criticized that the 6 power is too much for the snipers at that time, and we know that's kind of funny because in the end we used the M1903A1 with the 8 power scopes. Now Board also evaluated so-called hunting scopes, which were represented by the Weaver scope below. This was exactly the model used for the evaluation. And the Board find out that those scopes are small in size, very rigid, they have very good waterproofing. Weight of the telescope is much more desirable versus the target scopes, and that the telescope in the proper mount is sturdy and rigid. So from the report you can clearly see that the Weaver scope, because of the size, weight and the mount, was clearly favored over the Unertl scope. During the scope's testing, Board knew that the solution for the M1 rifles has to be positioned on the side of the rifle, because you need to have the ability to reload the rifle with the clip. At the same time, Board also insisted to have the ability of reloading the M1903 rifles with the clip. Later, we know that that was dropped for the M1903. That being said, the clip cutout survived in the US military even through the 80s, and later on when the Marines went using the M40 receivers, which had that specific requirement, retained to have that ability to reload the rifle with the clip. Also, another argument for the mounting scopes on the side was that the Board was asking to have the ability to keep using the irons regardless of the scope on the rifle. And from their point of view at that time, the only solution was to push the scope to the side of the rifle. Now, Board also covered the topic of the silencers used on the M1903 rifles. Unfortunately, all they had access is so-called Maxim-like silencer, and the results were rather disappointing when they noted that the silencer enables the shooter to kind of get away with the position where he is firing from. They noted that when the supersonic ammo is used, the loud crack still persists, no surprise here, through all the ranges. They even said that at the extended ranges, the observers were still able to pinpoint the location of the shooter. But on that note, I would call that BS, simply because I think that the observers knew exactly where the shooter is located and which direction the shot is coming from. Even with the very primitive silencers, the beauty of the silencer is that the silencer distorts the source of the sound. So I would say that this happened, these observers were able to pinpoint the location only because they were on a fixed range and they knew exactly where the shooters are located. That being said, the report was negative about these Maxim-like silencers, and they said that they do not recommend them. That being said, they said that the silencers offered the very promising results, and if the development will be directed to that, it will be worth it to investigate and deploy them in the future for the use among the snipers. And as we know from the history, if you watch the episode about the Soviet snipers, PM sniper, the PM sniper rifle was often equipped with the silencer. So the Soviets at the end of the 30s and the beginning of the 40s were way ahead of the ball on the sniping program versus the United States. So when all the dust settled, the Infantry Board concluded that the both M1 and M1903 rifles are absolutely suitable for sniping duty, and the accuracy is excellent in both. They also concluded, as we know, that the commercial or like M70 rifles are not fit for the duty for the reasons we already explained before. Board also concluded that the hunting scopes like Weaver 330 are recommended for the use. The only change they would like to see is to add, instead of using the flat screwdriver to adjust the elevation and windage, to add turrets for the windage and elevation. And that actually happened, because if you look into the 1903A4 rifle and M73 Bravo scope, that was the change made to the Weaver scope. The board also concluded that at this time the use of the silencers is not recommended. Another important factor for the scope was board recommended to putting the scopes on the side, and that actually happened for the M1 rifles, but for the M1903 at the end we did settle for the scope put over the center of the board. Board also recommended the selection of the scope mounts to be permanently mounted to the rifle, and they're supposed to be, of course, sturdy and rigid. Today we know that what the troops end up with at the front lines during the World War II slightly differ from what the board was recommending and what the board find out, but that report was absolutely a milestone which set the course for the whole World War II. Let's talk about the mysterious 400 yards zero. How that idea even came up to the picture. Unfortunately, during the testing and evaluation, board quickly concluded that the dialing, elevation or the windage on the existing scopes is really not feasible in the combat situations, because the scopes which they had to their disposal are not really suitable for this. So the solution had to be created to work around. The board anticipated that the most engagements will happen within the 600 yards. Here's a quick demonstration. So according to the US Army Infantry School, with that 400 yards zero at 300 yards, sniper should execute the holdover and hold below the target. The trajectory will be around 12 inches high at the 300 yards. So I'm thinking I'll hold at the bottom of the plate, and that should place us on the plate. Let's see how that's going to work out. I think that's a good hit. Even in that low power scope, I see it. And yes, we placed right on the like the top of the chest level. That is perfectly fine shot. I'm very happy. Holdover worked. Ula will advance to 400 yards right now, okay?
Okay.
At 400 yards, of course, we are zero at 400 yards, so elevation-wise, I'll hold it in the center of the target. That being said, we got some wind down the field. At 400, we are not bad yet with the windage-wise, but you have to start paying a little bit attention to it. So hopefully we can deliver a nice hit. But 400 yards definitely will be for the sniper the golden range, because that means putting the target in the center of the crosshairs. Let me know, Ula.
Let's go.
All right. And I think elevation wise, again, I hold it a little bit for the wind, but yeah, we are perfect. That's a beautiful hit. That's a beautiful hit. I will take that. So system works so far. Ula, let's go now to 500 yards.
Okay.
And the 500 yards, this is where the troubles really start popping up. At 500 yards, that means we will be around 20 inches or low. So you have to hold it above the target. So I'm thinking basically a half target above, and that should get us on the plate. That would be my estimate, and we'll see how's that going to end up, and if my guess is good. And guys, really, it would take just the training. If you are familiar with that type of the holdovers, you can beat this to your head. So for the snipers which went through that training, that would be like a second nature.
Okay, let's go.
All right. And, yeah, 20. Actually, we will be almost, imagine, because the plate is 18 by 27. So imagine that we have to be, will have to be the height from the shoulders to the bottom of the plate high, excluding head. All right, let's see. That's a hit on the plate. Let me check, guys, where we landed. Impossible to tell in that weaver scope. Beautiful. I mean, we are dead in the center of the target. This is outstanding hit. Hey, magic works. But I'll tell you, it was not funny to hold it that way. I mean, it takes some, I was fighting in my brain to picture that target, put it that height, and it worked out. But it was an easy shot. Now, that being said, forget all of this. We are going to 600 yards. At the 600 yards, according to the charts, we will be around 54 inches low. 54 inches, that means we have to be the whole plate and something above that target at 600 yards. So that's going to be a tremendous holdover. But hey, let's roll with it. We will see how that's going to work. And I'll put the measuring tape above the target so you guys can see how this is looking when you are at the target. That should be interesting pictures too. All right, I'm placing the round to the chamber, and I'll be waiting for Ula to tell me when she's ready.
Let's go.
All right. That's a hit on the plate, guys. Let me see where we landed. That was very, very difficult. Yes, you cannot make this up. This is a beautiful, beautiful hit. But I will tell you, I was struggling to get that crosshair at that imaginary, elevation. But hey, it is doable. I would say that with the training, for sure, this was not the best zero in my opinion, but it works. You cannot really argue with the results. So as you can see with your own eyes, this 400 yards zero concept was quite effective. Board also noted that this zero may be tweaked a little bit because of the ammunition available to the troops, and they will have to experiment a little bit on their own, but the bases were set. Now guys, this is it for this part of the video. We have been in your homes for an extended period of time already. I don't want to bore you. We will keep pushing forward and have another parts of the US military snipers in the World War II in the next videos. Thank you for watching. See you back soon.